Welcome to our session, Building Power with Cross-Country LGBTQ+ ERG Alliances. This is Cindy Weintraub. I'm the chair of the Silicon Valley San Francisco Alliance of over 45 Pride employee resource groups. I'll be your MC for the next 45 minutes. Before we begin, I want to draw your attention to the chat and poll areas that you should see on your screen. Feel free to type your questions in throughout our presentation and we'll answer them at the end. If we run out of time, we'll be sure to send you in an email answers to your questions. So let's get started. There's always a glitch to get started, but once we get started, it's going to look really good. So I'm not sure why this is not scrolling. Let's see if I can do something here. There we go. Okay, about today's session. So what we're going to do first is give you a little history of how we first got started from individual ERGs into this confederation of 45 companies. What our purpose is, and our mission continues to be, what programs, events, and activities we have done, as well as how we've been organized and what our structure is. Because what we expect that you'll take away from this is not only the benefits of building your own confederation within your region, but also how to build an alliance. So I'm Cindy Weintraub. I am the founder and chair of the Silicon Valley San Francisco LGBTQ Employee Resource Group Alliance. From now on, I'm just going to say the Pride Alliance. We started in 2008 with just 5 companies, and we've now grown to over 45 Fortune 500 companies in the Bay Area of San Francisco. I have worked at the largest tech and telecom companies, including Cisco, HP, and Western Digital. And I'm also the founder, and I continue to chair the annual Billy DeFrank LGBTQ+ benefit, which has raised now over $200,000 in the last 10 years. And one of my panelists asked why I'm such a fervent supporter and continue to be the event chair for this Billy DeFrank event, the benefit. We do this fundraiser every year because when I moved to California from New York, I was closeted. And to make a long story short, I joined the Billy DeFrank Women's Group, and it was very fortunate that I did that such a long time ago. I think it was over 30 years ago. And then my partner, who I came to New York with, left me one day, just dropped everything and took all of her clothes out of the house, and I had no idea where she went. I was in the closet. I had no friends here in California, and I just happened to go out to a club that evening and fortunately ran into a friend that I had met at the Billy DeFrank Women's Group. And if it were not for Billy DeFrank, I don't think you would see me here today. I was very, very depressed about being in the closet and not having anyone to turn to. And so I feel very passionate about doing this Billy DeFrank fundraiser every year. And we'll talk a little bit more about it as we go. So these are 3 other panelists that you'll hear from today. Cheryl Landers from Oracle, Kayla Curry is from Lockheed Martin Space, and Ricardo Barajas is from our local Valley Water System. So getting into the history of how we first formed, I mentioned to you how important the Billy DeFrank Center, which is the only gay center south of San Francisco serving our community, why We started with the Billy DeFrank Center. It was about to close in 2008 because of mismanagement of funds. And so I joined as the Cisco Pride leader in San Jose. We joined 4 other high-tech companies to produce that first Silicon Valley gay movie fundraiser. And with raising the $7,000, we kept the Billy DeFrank Center open, and that became the start of the Silicon Valley San Francisco Pride Alliance. And you could see how much it's grown today. From 5 little companies, well, we were pretty large companies, but from 5 to over 45 companies. And if you don't happen to see your company in this list, then you should definitely contact me or any one of the panelists, which you'll have all of our contact information at the end of this presentation. If you don't see yourself on here, then please do contact us, and you can easily join the Alliance in the Bay Area. But main reason why we have been able to grow so much is that you take your individual ERGs and you can only do so much as a single Pride ERG in your own company. But when you join and you're united with such a much larger confederation of companies that have the same objectives as you do, which are listed here, you're not only able to contribute and collaborate on ideas, but you plan activities to give encouragement and support to all your employees. You participate in the events, and that's pretty invigorating. You get to volunteer for events and activities that build community, and you make a huge impact that can not only change you and your group at work, but it can change society too. And we'll show you how we did that within these last several years. This gives you an indication of just some of the over 110 different programs that our members have produced over these last 12 years. There's quite, in addition to that, many of us participate in over 300 and have participated in over 300 different LGBTQ organizational conferences like HRC, GLSEN, GLAD, and this one at Out and Equal. So I'm going to turn it over to our panelists, starting with Cheryl, to talk about the importance of the Alliance to her. Cheryl?
Hi, everybody. Thank you, Cindy. Hi, everybody. I'm glad you're with us today in this session. So my name is Cheryl Lander. I use pronouns she and her. In addition to being a member of the Alliance, which I'm really excited about, I am one of the global board co-chairs for OPEN, which is the Oracle Pride Employee Network for LGBTQ+ and allies. We have 43 chapters in over 20 countries, and so we have quite the global span. My day job is as a senior director for the CX Verticals team, and we are working on cloud applications for the telco service providers and media service providers. I also have attended the Out and Equal Executive Forum, Workplace Summit, and last year I was fortunate enough to speak on a panel about travel advisories. I'm also a member and club service director of the Silicon Valley Rainbow Rotary Club, the second Rainbow Rotary Club in the world, the first of which is in San Francisco. So now just a little bit about why I wanted to join the Alliance and why it's important to me. So just like Out and Equal, and I think, those of you who've had the pleasure of attending understand the power in numbers and in networking. And so this is a way for us to extend that enthusiasm year long. So I like to say that it's partially because we can learn from each other and we can give back not only to other members, but to the community. And so that's important to me. Oracle, I would say, is in the middle of the maturity spectrum when it comes to our LGBTQ+ Alliance or LGBTQ+ ERG. And so the opportunity to learn from other companies who are doing better work around social engagement, racial injustice and so many other important topics, I think is really important, but also giving back to the companies who have fledgling ERGs who want to know how to grow their ERGs. I feel like we've done a really good job of that at Oracle. And so, I really like to be able to give back. So next, I'll turn it over to Kayla, who's going to talk about her experience.
Awesome. Hopefully everyone can hear me. My name is Kayla Curry. My pronouns are she and her. I work for Lockheed Martin Space, which I found out this morning. A lot of people didn't know there was a space division. We do mostly satellites and things that go out into orbit. I know the big program people mostly know are planes, which is part of the Aero division. I have been with Lockheed for almost 8 years now, and in the Bay Area since 2016. I am currently a systems engineer and work for kind of a small team, but also a pretty big program. So for me, the Alliance is important to me mostly because of the community that it allows me to interact with. Being that I was new to the Bay Area, it gave me a bigger group of people to just kind of come to with ideas and talk to and really learn from has been the biggest thing for me. And I know a few years ago, I actually participated by going to weekly meetings at the Billy DeFrank Center to help plan the Silicon Valley Pride Festival. And so that was a really cool undertaking for me because I got to be hands-on and make a lot of decisions when it came to what we were going to do at Pride, and then also had Lockheed participating that day. So the day of Pride was super busy for me. I was up at 5 a.m. helping move boxes, and then at 11 trying to march, and then after that trying to clean up boxes. And so it was a really long day, but I wouldn't trade that experience for the world. And without the Silicon Valley Alliance, I probably would have never had the opportunity to do that because I just wouldn't have known that was something out there that I could do. So from there, I'm going to pass it on to Ricardo to talk about why the Alliance is important to him.
Thanks, Kayla. My microphone has been a little finicky, so let me know if you guys can't hear me. Hi, my name is Ricardo Barajas, and my pronouns are he and him. I am a program administrator for the Office of Civic Engagement for Valley Water, formerly known as the Santa Clara Valley Water District. For those of you who are not aware of Valley Water, we provide clean, safe water for all of Santa Clara County. So that's somewhere around 2 million people or so. So it's not an easy task, but we pretty much keep the water flowing here for all of our partners. I'm also the president of the Pride LGBTQ employee resource group here at Valley Water. My background revolves in the Bay Area. Specifically, I was born and raised here in the Bay Area and in San Jose. And I went to San Jose State University where I earned my degree in marketing and then went on to do my master's in public administration. A lot of my work involves connecting with underrepresented minorities like large Latino and the Vietnamese population here in Santa Clara County. So given that the LGBT community is also underrepresented, this alliance felt like a good opportunity for me to showcase my skill set and my training. I also come to the alliance meetings with that mindset and bring that to our annual fundraiser, which you've been hearing about, but we'll get more into it as the presentation goes on. Like many others, it took me a while for me to come out to my family and to myself, really. But now look at me. I lead the LGBTQ Pride ERG at Valley Water, and I'm on a webinar talking to all you fine people. So that's just part of my journey, and that's why I'm part of this alliance and why it's important to me. So with that, I'll pass it back to Cindy.
Thanks, Rick. So what we wanted to do is give you some background on the business benefits that the Alliance presents to your companies, as well as each individual that are members of your ERG. So we'll address best practices, collaboration, and social change. And we're going to start off with Kayla and best practices.
All right, so I accidentally cut off my video and my audio at the same time. I think I'm back. So best practices. So the best part about the allianceship, like I said earlier, is really just the ability to kind of share ideas and lessons learned and things like that. And so some of the programs we have listed here that were kind of started in some some different companies here in the Bay Area. So the Allies program presented by Intel, Transpanel Workshop by Intuit, Unconscious by HP. And then the self-identity was done by VMware here in the Valley. And the other thing we wanted to pick up on was just the HRC index, which I'm sure everybody in the audience knows is one of the first places people go to kind of see where your company stands on LGBT issues and kind of learn a little bit about where their policies kind of place them in that index. And I know for me, it's important to just kind of know if I was looking for another company, or even just knowing that Lockheed is part of that list and a top contributor, it's something that just makes me proud to work for who I work for. And then also it allows everybody in the allianceship to kind of talk and share ideas and best practices, and that's really what we're going for here, and why we come together every month to talk about things, and why we continue to fundraise for the Billy DeFrank Center is just to make sure that we have a strong foundation and that we can share it with everyone. And so from there, I'm going to pass it to Ricardo for collaboration.
Thanks, Kayla. Part of our collaboration includes sharing LGBTQ focused events that the various participating ERGs are actually producing within the Alliance. That includes co-hosting and or promoting LGBTQ opportunities, events, and activities. In the past, for example, we've collaborated with Bay Area tech companies such as with Netflix out of Los Gatos, which is here not too far from San Jose, for their Pride festivities, with Intuit on a trans summit, and Fujitsu with a workshop on building an LGBT ERG program. These are just some examples of events and speakers, charity support, and fundraising that we share with our various members. Also, it's not always business. We do have time for in-person networking, such as happy hour meetups, campus meet and greets, just an opportunity to connect with fellow members and establish those connections. We also produce programs for joint business growth and impact, including our signature event, which you've been hearing about, the Billy DeFrank benefit event that we do. This event really brings in much needed revenue that is used to fix things such as at one point it was the roof when it was like that downpour that was coming down here in this area. And it also provides funds for other maintenance and operational costs. By nurturing these relationships, we've increased membership over the years, along with the ability to influence policies within our companies, communities, domestically and globally. With that, I'll pass it on to Cheryl.
And to build on what Ricardo was talking about, so we think an important tenet of the Alliance is to also ensure that we have some social impact. So in 2016, I'm sure many of you know that HB 2 in North Carolina was introduced to basically legalize discrimination in that state. Many of the business leaders in the US, including quite a few prominent Silicon Valley companies, decided that this form of discrimination was uncalled for, and they banded together to write a letter against what became called the bathroom bill, or the North Carolina or Charlotte bathroom bill. So what happened with the Alliance was our founder, Cindy, contacted a company that we thought was, very prominent in the Valley and missing from this list, Hewlett Packard, contacted the head of diversity and inclusion at Hewlett Packard and asked for information about how to get Meg Whitman, who was the CEO at the time, to sign on this business leader's letter in support of not passing this law. Within a day of that phone call that Cindy made, Meg Whitman signed this letter, which is extremely impressive given how much I understand, in many companies, trying to get something like this through takes a long time, sometimes hits many roadblocks, as I'm sure many of you are aware. So thanks to Cindy and the Alliance for putting this forward. HP did sign. At the time they signed, there were only 80 signers, and it went to well over 100 and maybe even beyond that. And as you know, that law was not passed. And so, I feel like we joined together to represent our transgender and gender non-conforming community members who would have been affected by that law. So thanks to the Alliance for that. And now I believe it's back to Cindy to talk more about how we're organized.
Yeah, thanks, Cheryl. And I just want to say the wrap up on best practices, collaboration, and making social impacts. You can try as you will within your own company, but obviously, the more united you are in an organization that includes many others with the same objectives, you're going to be able to have a much greater impact overall. So the way that we're organized to ensure that we grow and there's continuity throughout each year that we're together, we hold monthly 90-minute business meetings. We alternate between in-person and virtual. And unfortunately, with the pandemic, we've had to go all virtual. And then again, fortunately, most of us have been together for years, so going virtual isn't like establishing new relationships from the beginning, which is very difficult. But we've been able to continue to grow with these monthly business meetings. And what we cover there, we have a little capture of one of our agenda slides. So we usually review some old business, and then we get into the new business that includes presentations by outside LGBTQ organizations that maybe we're not all familiar with, but it's presented and they're sponsored by one of our members, and then they get to have 10 minutes to talk about their organization. We also, this is really important, to plan upcoming events. So you saw that earlier slide where we've done over 110 events over these last 10 years or so. So this is where we begin the planning and set up committee chairs to continue with that planning and the execution of the event or activity. And as Rick had mentioned, you don't want to just be all business. So we do have our happy hours, which again, because of the pandemic, many of them have gone virtual with drag queens from all over the country that PayPal's done, and as many different creative ideas we can have to continue happy hours virtually. But typically we would go to a physical space, patronize LGBTQ-owned businesses with appetizers that are courtesy of one of our members that swaps around. So that's worked really well to continue building up the Alliance and our membership. So you have to have some sort of profile for your organization. And the overall general criteria is that individuals of high tech or Fortune 500 companies from leading their LGBTQ plus ERGs can apply for either a full or associate membership, and we'll tell you the difference about those in a moment. And in order to continue as a member, you need to actively participate in these monthly 90-minute meetings. You need to produce or co-produce with another member an LGBTQ plus program, at least one per year, and share those programs with your personal and professional networks. So we are going to have Kayla come back and talk about the benefits of a full versus an associate membership. Kayla?
Thank you, Cindy. The biggest difference between the full and the associate membership is really the voting rights in the elections. As a full member, you're able to participate in voting for different policies and procedures, and actually vote in the elections and run for an officer position if wanted. I remember when I joined, that was one of the votes that I actually got to vote on, was adding in the associate membership. Was one of my first things I ever voted on for the Alliance, which I thought was pretty cool. I think one thing we don't really touch too much on, and I would just wanted to share a little, was the reason that I ended up there was because of my mentor and friend Kim over at Lockheed. She was like, hey, this is a great opportunity, you should go to these meetings, you know, Cindy's so much fun, you know, you should go and participate and hang out. And then I met Cindy for the first time at Al Equal, but that's a different story. And so just at least at Lockheed, we try to make sure that that our current LGBT board, our ERG board, knows about the Alliance, and that we have at least 2 people that are on the email chain so that we can pass that information on to the group as a whole. And then also, you know, once people leave, we can kind of push that next member into that role to make sure that we have a little continuity in our membership as full members in this Alliance. And with that, I'm going to pass it to Cheryl to talk a little bit about associate membership.
Great. And so, as Kayla mentioned, the main difference around voting rights and elections, as you see here on this page. But, you know, for me, and I voted for associate membership when that came up for vote as well, because I think we were at a maturity level and at a point in our organization where it was important to kind of expand beyond the high tech and Fortune 500 companies. As I mentioned earlier, being able to share our experiences and learn from each other is really important, and probably almost more important to those fledgling ERGs that don't have a lot of direction or support, or, you know, the large companies that aren't necessarily high tech or Fortune 500, who want to learn and share their best practices as well. So it was great when we voted on this. And, you know, for me personally, I think when Impossible Foods joined our alliance, I was so thrilled because I happen to be a big fan. And it was great to have one of our meetings at their site and actually get to taste some of their samples. So that was kind of an added benefit. But, you know, seriously, they've brought a lot to the table. They're playing a big role in our Billy DeFrank benefit this year that you'll hear a little bit about. And so, you know, even though they may be smaller, they're mighty, and, you know, we're learning from them. So associate membership is really important. And now I'm going to turn it over to Ricardo, who's going to talk a little bit about how we get the word out about us.
Thanks, Cheryl. And on this slide, you'll notice we have a typical structure. As with most organizations, we have about 7 total officer roles. And all of these roles are really important to the Alliance. They all bring in something that is needed. The vice chair specifically is an important role to keep and have, and that's for 2 reasons, succession and to delegate. We need to have someone that's going to be able to hold that torch and keep it going every single time in case something were to happen. So we always want to keep that position specifically filled. Our communications role is also really important, which I've held in the past actually. And it's essential in making sure that all the programs and the events are promoted throughout the membership, keeps us all informed. This role also handles our social media. Much of the roles on here are pretty self-explanatory and essential in making sure that the Alliance stays focused and continues to grow. The most exciting role, though, for me, if you were to ask me, is the happy hour coordinator role. And that's because that individual makes sure to select monthly venues with a focus on the businesses owned by members of the LGBT community here in Silicon Valley. And it's a great way to interact with individuals and kind of get to know everybody a little bit better and to kind of grow your family. So that's a really fun position to have. Next slide, please. So getting the word out. So just to give you a little bit of background, the Alliance began back in 2008, and it started with about 5 companies. So the founding companies included businesses like Cisco, Ernst & Young, and now there's over 45 total. Our primary communications tool still is Facebook, our Facebook page. And here we post volunteer opportunities like creek cleanups, social mixers, fundraising events, and Alliance collaborations. Only the Alliance leaders get to post on our Facebook page, and that helps us control what gets posted. All others get to view and share the events on the page itself. Being that we are in Silicon Valley, we are looking at expanding our efforts to Instagram and Twitter, but it really comes down to finding a dedicated volunteer to help coordinate all this. Remember that we're doing this all additional to our roles sometimes. In some of our employee resource groups, we are allocated hours to dedicate to this kind of, to the Alliance, but not everyone has that ability. And so therefore it's been somewhat of a challenge to kind of expand, because people do rotate around, and being part of the Alliance is, like I mentioned, an unpaid role that sometimes, you know, is an additional thing that you have to really add to your plate. And so, but we're looking to get that all sorted out. With that, I'll pass it back to you, Cindy.
Yeah, thanks, Rick. So having a way to communicate on a regular basis in between those monthly meetings is so important. And of course, anybody who is not a leader can find that Facebook page and share it with their own networks. So probably one of the biggest events that we do, since we do it every year, and not only one or two companies in the Alliance is producing it, but a multitude of us are doing it, either in planning or in volunteering or both, is our signature event, which is that annual benefit for the Billy DeFrank LGBTQ plus Community Center in San Jose. So you can see I've highlighted all of the 10 different events that we've had starting in 2008. And the first 9 years we produced these movie events at a local theater chain. But 5 years ago, we added corporate sponsorships, which thanks to Rick, he had said to me, hey, Cindy, why don't we add some corporate sponsorships? Maybe we can boost that $7,000 a year money that we raise to something more significant. So that was 5 years ago that we put together, okay, Rick put together this wonderful sponsorship package that we retain even up to today. So 5 years ago, we initiated it. It went from $7,000 to $25,000. And we sustained that $25,000 every year until last year. You could see at the bottom right, you see that we actually had a live performance of Hamilton presented by a fabulously dressed in costume of that time period of 1776. It was Hamilton, the drag experience at a real theater in San Jose. And we went from raising $25,000 to raising $60,000 and selling out the theater in just 2 weeks' time. So that was an incredible experience, which we attempted to do once again. We had a cast to do the next, I think it was Disney and Drag or something like that. We had a venue, but then COVID came along and really messed us up. We had to switch gears twice because we lost our cast and venue. They couldn't rehearse. The second time, COVID, it closed all the indoor venues. So we moved to the drive-in. So now we have got on October 25th, which is only in 3 weeks' time, a little less, we have an exciting movie event. The movies are coming from California's 2 top LGBTQ plus film festivals, Outfest LA and Frameline. So we will be screening 2 features and 2 shorts. There will be 200 vehicles allowed in, which is 50% their normal capacity. So we expect to have about 550 attendees. It's all under COVID-19 regulations by the health department. So we're all good on that. We're gonna have 7 drag queens delivering, well, basically waitress service to the VIPs. We have 3 different levels of tickets. There'll be the 3 food trucks, which Cheryl alluded to, is being set up with Impossible patties and bulk foods. And Hint Beverages is our beverage sponsor for our VIPs and deluxe ticket holders. So for any of you in the Bay Area or will be in the Bay Area on October 25th in 3 weeks, please do go to movie.defrank.org and get your tickets today. I'm going to just let you look at that a little bit more. We're very excited about putting on this event, and you could see the numbers of sponsors that we have for this year. Very exciting. So now I'm going to ask each one of our panelists to talk a little bit about what has impacted them on the programs that they either produced or they participated in. You could see by these quotes that we got from many attendees that were not necessarily members, but they came to our programs, what they felt about these exciting activities and programs that we put on. So I think maybe Cheryl, you wanted to go first?
Yeah, sure, I'll go first. So for me, I think, I mean, it's hard to pick one because we've had quite a lot of really impressive programs and events that we've been engaged with, but probably the most fun and most impactful for me was when we did Hamilton and Drag. So I was the volunteer coordinator for that, and I tapped into not only our Alliance folks, but my mother's circle of friends. So a lot of elderly people, many of them somewhat conservative, who are members of the Elks Lodge, came to this event. And you know, for a Montana gal who had been married to a man before coming out when I moved to California, this was quite a change to see my mother and her friends actually enjoying a drag show that was raising money for a very important, event, raising money for the Billy DeFrank. So I guess for me, that was the most impactful, personally, just knowing how far I've come with my family and through the support of the Alliance and my, co-workers at Oracle. So that's what I have to say. So I'll turn it over to Kayla now to talk about what was most impactful for her.
So for me, I think the most impactful thing is always just learning new things about people, new things about the way we treat each other, and just being able to absorb people's stories and learning about what makes them them, right? And then what makes me different from them, but also the same, is what I gather from most of these meetings that I go to. The constant unconscious bias training, some trans events, and then having these hosted by other companies just makes it that much more, because I can take back some things that I get from them and bring it back to Lockheed and just try to implement in my everyday office, in my everyday work. I'm pretty out at work, pretty visibly queer person, and so I like introducing those guys to a lot of different things that I learn and pick up. And even just coming to this Out and Equal event this year, I was like, oh, well, guys, I won't be there next week. Sorry. If you need me, I think I'll be around, but maybe not so much. And they were like, hey, what are you doing? And I just got to tell them, hey, I'm going to this Out and Equal event. It's an LGBT thing, and Lockheed's sponsoring. So yeah, I'm definitely going to go and spend some time with a whole bunch of people and a lot of people in my community. And so that's basically what I get out of most of these programs from the Alliance. And so, Ricardo, would you like to share?
Sure. Thanks, Kayla. I mean, I agree with what Cheryl and Kayla have said. For me specifically, I've built really strong relationships with individuals within the Alliance. The LGBTQ family in the Bay Area is very connected. And even through this process, I've gotten to know Kayla, Cheryl, and Cindy a lot better. You really get out of it what you put in, just like anything else. And being that I'm in the government arena and funding is always front and center, I was happy to share and apply my sponsorship know-how to help boost the fundraising capabilities of our yearly fundraiser. Cindy did mention, we nearly almost quadrupled, if not more, the funds that really go to support that LGBT community resource center. And it would have been possible if not through this Alliance. The following months, if not years, will be very challenging for many organizations given the pandemic. And being part of this Alliance kind of helps you feel like, you still have that family around, and, and you have to have a willingness to lend a hand whenever possible. I know Cindy's going to be having a slide with all of our contact info, but, also feel free to connect with us through LinkedIn to see if you have any other questions to follow up, just so that that you have other opportunities to help us build this Alliance. Cindy, back to you.
Yeah, thanks. Yeah, I think I already gave some feedback on, the programs that we put together. So what I enjoy doing with the group is to see their excitement when they start planning a program or activity and getting everybody involved, because I'm pretty social myself. And having worked in these different companies within my own small team, but then being able to collaborate with folks outside of my own team is the most exciting thing, because we do get to learn from one another. So what you've all been waiting for is the step-by-step, how do I do this? So we're gonna show you exactly what steps you need to take to start your very own alliance. So recruiting and then thriving. So first you've got to establish yourself. And how do you do that? You want to invite local companies, ERG leaders, to a meeting to propose having an alliance. You want to explain the purpose of it, and you could use any of these slides because you'll have the whole presentation. Explain the purpose and the benefits, the common objectives you have, the benefits you'll get out of it, the organizational structure you'd like to see, and the criteria to become a member. So you've got all that in this packet. Then you'll want to have people nominate themselves or come up with folks that will become officers, and then you can have elections. Then third is the visibility, to create some kind of social media platform so that you're able to share programs that you do and be able to promote it so that you can grow your base of Alliance members. So once you've established yourself, then you want to nurture and grow. And the easiest way to do that is to have regularly scheduled meetings. So important. What we did is we established the third Thursday of every single month. So it's on everybody's calendar. They know in advance, oh, it's the third Thursday. I know where I need to be from 3:30 to 5. So ours is regularly scheduled. Then we have the criteria of producing or co-producing at least one program with the membership. And then finally, to post and share your program on our social media page, as well as your own company and personal social media outlets. So here we go. If we haven't given you enough, you can always fall back on any one of us four, either via LinkedIn or using our addresses here. So I think at this point in time, we will sit back and take a look at any questions that have come in, and we would be able to answer some. So Cheryl, Kayla, or Rick, if you're looking at any of the polling or chat areas, do we have any questions at all?
The first one I saw was, how do you go about getting new companies to join the alliance or begin an alliance of different companies?
So, okay, well, I'll take that because we just went over how to do it, but let me do it again. Well, and that is that, every large company does have an HR department. They all have, or should have, probably have, a D&I, and inclusion and diversity team. So they would be able to identify their Pride LGBTQ group, and you get the contact information from the leaders of that group, and then you invite them to this orientation. So, I mean, that's what I did when I first started, and it works. And hopefully that answered your question.
Okay, and another question is, what platform do you use for collaboration? So maybe about who hosts our meetings. I think we use Cisco, right? Cisco WebEx.
Oh, okay. So for our meetings, yeah, I thought you meant programs or activities or events. So the first thing for collaboration, yes, we have on our monthly meeting, our Texas Instruments member has scheduled our regular monthly meetings, our business meetings, as well as the happy hours when we were doing it outside of our own companies. And then for this particular event that we have coming up on October 25th, the big benefit, again, TI stepped up and put together WebEx. So we've had Zoom calls to collaborate. And so we have not, even with PayPal, we had a Microsoft Teams call. So there's various ways that our different companies collaborate with one another on events that we're planning together.
Okay, and then somebody, and a kind of a follow on to that, not every company uses and allows the same technology. Have we run into any issues with any of the technology that we're using? Cindy, I don't think so, have we?
I don't think so. You know, most of us, because we are the larger Fortune 500 companies, we typically use similar video conferencing. But if you're talking about some of the internal ones that are used, name some of them for me. Slack and
Mm.
yeah. So, you know, often that's just for internal use. Sometimes a company will allow you to do it outside. So that's why we do typically set up our own calls on a WebEx or a Zoom or a Microsoft Teams platform.
Yeah, and I can talk to that a little bit too. Being from Lockheed, company with a lot of classified stuff, you know, there's a lot of things we don't get to use, and you know, my laptop at work doesn't have a webcam and some other things, and so for me, you guys always list multiple ways to get into the calls, which is always good for me because I can just call on the phone, or I can, if I'm home, I can get on a Zoom call or something like that. So there's also always multiple ways to get into these monthly calls if need be. So
Yeah, many of us come in not through our company's site, but our personal ones, Gmail or Yahoo or whatever it might be.
Sure.
Thanks,
So
Kayla.
Kayla answered one of the questions about how do you deal with proprietary limitations that individual companies may have, like defense contractors like Lockheed. I think we answered that one. Is there anything else we could add to that?
Yeah, I know that AT&T also had that same concern. I don't know how Rob got around that because he does dial in now. He might do it through his own personal email. Not sure.
Mm-hmm.
But yes, there's always ways to get around these things.
Exactly. And then someone asked if we're a 501c3 and how that was established.
So we are not, and we don't have a bank account. And this is a total volunteer organization of employees from these different, most or Fortune 500 companies. So we're not a 501c. When we do this annual fundraiser, we actually have Billy DeFrank pay all the bills. And then when we take in the money, it goes directly over to the Billy DeFrank bank account. So no, we're not a nonprofit.
So I saw another question. It was, we're doing something similar in Orange County starting this year. One of our goals has been to get more board involvement on LGBTQ organizations. Any hints for that? Cindy shaking her head.
Well, I was just thinking, usually that there's already an established, you need a champion for sure. You know, most of us in our companies have sponsors that are either allies or LGBTQ. So that's really important to have because they usually hold bigger budgets and can help putting together programs when you need some sponsorship, some extra money. So I just remember at Cisco, there was Jim Grubb, who was a senior vice president to John Chambers. And so he became one of our advocates and champions. And anyway, so we usually, why are you laughing, Kayla? Who's your champion over at Lockheed Martin?
Oh,
or sponsor?
don't put me on the spot. I don't
Oh, maybe you don't
people's
know.
names.
Okay.
Sorry.
No, I mean, usually your D&I folks will know who's more friendly towards LGBTQ. So you can write directly to them one-on-one as a Pride leader to ask them if they would be interested in being the ERG sponsor and what that entails. Just their support, basically.
Yeah, and just to add on to that, I think the question was also talking about, working with, working with LGBTQ plus organizations and how you connect with their boards, perhaps. And in the case of our Billy DeFrank fundraiser, we have a great relationship with the gal that is the chairman of the board for Billy DeFrank. And, as you can tell from the presentation today, that really is the main organization that we partner with to do a benefit. So we make sure that we're not spreading things too thinly. All of our funding that we raise through the year goes to that organization. And so I think that's helped us. But, and Cindy, I don't know, maybe you can talk about how we developed the relationship with Gabrielle. I'm not sure how that all started. Do you have that history?
Yes, well, over the last 12 years that we've been doing this event, they have had more than one president or chair. So it was at the very beginning in 2008. Let's see, the executive director left, so there was nobody there. So I don't remember who in 2008, but 2009 when there was a president in there. So we invited that person to to our meetings. So, and I also went, of course, and had conversations directly with that person and the board, their board. Since we knew that we were going to do a second event, and then we did a third event. And these people who are presidents of the Billy DeFrank as a volunteer organization, they actually have been people that work for these very large companies. So we had Audrey, who was with Apple and is now with PayPal, that went and got us their $5,000 sponsorship for Billy DeFrank drive-in event this year. We have Greg Bellis, who worked for AT&T and is now with Uber and does all of our web event pages. And then there's Gabrielle, who's been for the last 3 years the president of Billy DeFrank. So just in working with them, and we're all local and we all hang out in the same community events. So we get to this year, of course, very difficult. Thank goodness we're not starting at the very beginning, because it's really hard to establish relationships just on the phone or on a video conference. So it's been great for us that we've had this long established relationship with people that have been in the same role for several years. So we've known each of these groups and the different companies that they've moved to. So we continue to be in relationship with them, as well as the newer president of Billy DeFrank, Gabrielle Antolovich.
And one last question in the polls was, what is the website for our alliance? And we don't really have a website. We have the Facebook page, and maybe Ricardo, can you put the link to the Facebook page maybe in the chat?
I think I had, yeah.
I just
Okay.
added.
Oh, good. Oh, good. Yeah, and so the Facebook group has been really the main way that we get the word out and communicate about events and things like that. So no website. But if you're volunteering to create one for us, we'd love to talk to you.
Yeah, that's right.
Or if you know Twitter or Instagram and live in the
There
Bay
you go.
Area.
Yeah.
One of the things I saw a couple of times pop up is having a chapter in Southern California, LA, and I just saw Kim Lucero sent us a message and mentioned that Lockheed has a presence down in that area, and they are willing to start an alliance down there too, or at least talk about some of that stuff. So if you guys want to reach out, go ahead and reach out to me if you're down in that area, and I can put you forward to Kim and maybe some other people down in that area who would want to participate in that.
Yeah, and I noticed that somebody also said there's an alliance in Stuttgart, Germany. So if you happen to be from Germany, you can connect with that person. So there's probably, and I know there's one in the Pacific Northwest because one of our open board members is on that. So I know there's something in the Seattle area. I don't know of many others, but one interesting thing would be for us to be connecting globally so that as people find out that there is such a thing as an alliance, that we have a network of alliances that can connect people to the one in their area. So for a future project, Cindy, think global.
Yep. Okay. Any other questions that have come up in the chat or poll area?
I saw some more. Give me 1 second. See if I can find it again. I've been pasting them in my
We'll
windows.
take all those little hands clapping if you don't have any questions.
So I see one. For an ERG just starting to look at partnering outside its company, or one-to-one company-to-company alliance partnerships a good way to start? Or do you recommend starting with a full-fledged multi-company alliance? Did you get all that?
No,
Okay.
I can just gather what you said one-on-one to speak to one person, one group at a time
Right.
versus
More like
getting
starting the partnership with a company to company versus going straight into a multi-company alliance.
whatever works. It depends on your bandwidth, how many people you know. I mean, starting off small is always good until you get secure enough, confident enough to be able to present to a larger group. It's nice to have a small group already committed, like we did 12 years ago. We started with 5 that did something, you know, to start the group. And then they told 5 different companies, and those told 5 different companies. So you don't just do it one person. Everybody, sort of like the apostles. That's what I'm thinking of. You know how you start with just Jesus, and then you start bringing in people, and they tell people, and they tell people. So that's the best way to start, is small, and then just grow from there. But you got to be committed. I mean, you can't just have people floating in and out. That's for sure. Consistency is a major piece of keeping the alliance together. And when you have that board, that officer set, that structure, you have got to have a vice president to move into the president role. Just like Kayla was saying, even within Lockheed with her own pride group, you've got to have a second in command in any case to take over when I was at HP, so HP split into HPE and HP, and I was in HPE, Craig Souza was in HP. They sold the HPE software division that I was in, so everybody was laid off, and there was no longer me or my group. So the other people that were left over, you know, they had to fill into the regular HP group if they were still employed. So you have to make sure that you have your plan B, and plan B is a vice chair. I think somebody had raised their hand that I saw come through, but I'm not sure who. Kevin or something like that. I can't see anything, so I rely on Rick, Kayla, and Cheryl.
Yep, and I just noted, if you've not already done so and you have an alliance in your area, please note it in one of the chats or polls, or note it somewhere, and then we'll compile and put it out on this site this week.
Yeah.
Oh, Kevin Brunk, who's from Oracle, was just clapping.
Yeah.
He doesn't have a question.
Yay.
He's just clapping.
That's the only, out of everybody, I only saw Kevin. Yay. Okay.
All right.
I think we're good.
I was gonna say I listed more questions, and I'll pass it out to us as a group so we can answer those later.
Okay.
They were all in the Skype chat, so I've got, or Zoom chat, so I've got some of those written down for future. But.
Okay, well, I want to applaud all of my co-presenters, because not only did we last an entire hour, but we actually even sustained our participant number for a whole hour. So, you know, that is big victory, big victory. Congratulations. So hope that you all took away how to build your own alliance. And we look forward to speaking with you if you need more information, but download this presentation, and that should give you a good head start. Thanks all, and enjoy Out and Equal Summit this week.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Thank you. Bye.
Thank you all.